Have you ever walked into a room and realized nobody noticed you, and instead of feeling awkward, you felt relieved? No questions, no eyes on you, no pressure to perform. You can sit quietly in the corner, listen to everyone talk, observe what's happening, and leave without becoming part of the story. And honestly, that can feel pretty good. Maybe you're the person who doesn't mind not getting credit. You don't rush to post your achievements. If someone forgets to mention your name, you might notice it, but you don't necessarily feel the need to correct them. And here's the interesting part. People often assume that enjoying being unnoticed means you're insecure, shy, antisocial, or lacking confidence. But sometimes it means something completely different. Sometimes not being noticed is freedom. So why would someone secretly prefer staying out of the spotlight? And what does that? Imagine you're at a party. Everyone is talking loudly. Someone is telling a story. Another person is trying to be funny. Phones are coming out. Pictures are being taken. People are constantly asking questions. And you're sitting there quietly watching. Someone turns to you and says, "Why are you so quiet?" And suddenly you're thinking, "I was perfectly happy until you pointed it out." For some people, attention creates pressure. The moment. This is the first kind of person who enjoys being unnoticed, the private observer. They often have a strong inner world. They notice details other people overlook. The change in someone's voice, the awkward pause after a joke, who keeps checking their phone, who suddenly becomes quieter when a certain person enters the room. They're not necessarily disconnected from people, they're studying them. And sometimes observing feels more comfortable. And there's something else happening here. Being unnoticed gives the observer control. If nobody expects anything from you, you're free to decide when or whether you want to engage. Then there's another profile, the person who has simply become tired of being perceived. Think about how strange modern life has become. You're not just living anymore, you're documenting yourself living. What did you eat? Post it. Where did you go? Post. They don't necessarily hate attention. They just don't want their identity to depend on it. They might accomplish something meaningful and tell almost nobody. They might have an exciting weekend and never upload a picture. They might receive a compliment and simply say, "Thanks," instead of turning it into a story. And maybe that's why being unnoticed can feel strangely peaceful. But here's the twist. Sometimes people enjoy being unnoticed because attention has become associated with expectation. Imagine someone who spent years being praised for being the responsible one. Everyone expects them to handle things. Need help? Call them. Problem? They'll solve it. Someone has to stay calm. Obviously them. Eventually, being noticed starts to feel like they might cancel plans without drama. They might avoid becoming the unofficial leader of a group. They might intentionally stay quiet during discussions, even when they have something useful to say, not because they have nothing to contribute, but because they know what happens once people discover they can rely on you. One favor becomes 5. One responsibility becomes a role. And before you know it, you're no longer just yourself. You're. Maybe, growing up, they were constantly criticized. Maybe every mistake was noticed. Maybe expressing an opinion led to arguments. Maybe being emotionally open made them feel exposed. Over time, the mind can learn a simple equation. Visibility equals vulnerability. So, staying unnoticed becomes a form of emotional protection. They don't necessarily think, I must hide. It can be much subtler. They don't volunteer personal information, because there's a difference between enjoying privacy and feeling that you must disappear. And then there's perhaps the most interesting type of all, the person who doesn't need to be noticed because they have stopped using other people's attention as proof of their worth. They don't need the room to react. They don't need everyone to agree. They don't need constant reassurance that their interest